Vamshi, can you on the recording?
Fine, sir. Fine.
Hi Shiva, I still did not receive the test WAR file.
I remember sending it to all. Asif has sent me an email. To the same email, I did a reply to all.
Reply to all. Gmail address, let me check.
Oh, yeah, okay. So is this Asif?
Yeah.
Asif, I did a reply to all to your email, yeah?
Okay, let me check.
Other than that, anyone any questions? I think Kranti is in.
Okay, yeah, I got the email. Thank you.
No problem.
Sajjad is not coming. He's busy, so he'll take the recording.
Okay. So anyone any questions before I start my session? Okay. Silence. I'll assume no questions from anyone. Okay. If you're not having any questions, give me a minute. Sorry. Okay, there's some problem with my section. Just hold on for a minute. In the meanwhile, anyone having any questions, they can ask me. I ran into some issue.
How do we know if the request come is it a static request or dynamic request? How the Jboss decide whether it's a static or dynamic and which
No.
body?
Jboss doesn't do any kind of Jboss doesn't have any kind of intelligence to confirm whether it's static or dynamic. Okay, it's all done by your application code. Whatever the application code you're trying to deploy, it's all taken care by that.
Application code.
Yes.
Okay.
Shiva, I think it is the web server which decides why it should be application code.
One second.
Shiva is gone?
Yes, 1 second. No, I'm there here. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. Oh, I messed up with something on my system. It's giving me a problem to connect to my remote machine. I'm just trying to resolve that. Just give me 1 or 2 more minutes. That's it. I think it's getting resolved. Just give me a minute. 1 more minute. Yep, I'm done. Okay. So someone was having some question. I'm really sorry. I missed that.
Yeah, let's say from the internet, from the web, a request came into Jboss application server. So it has to process it first, but before processing, you need to make a decision whether it's a static request or dynamic. So how it will decide?
See,
How would
actually,
we?
frankly speaking, your application server, your Jboss application server doesn't have that intelligence to say whether it's a static or dynamic request, but it has a capability to process both static as well as the dynamic request. So whenever request comes and hits your server, hits your environment, developer will write a code called as an web.xml file, which is called as an deployment level deployment descriptor. Okay, application level deployment descriptor. So this application level deployment descriptor will say where the request has to go. Does it has to go to the web server, or does it has to go to the any other front-end device, or how it has to be channelized? It will be told by the developer. It's something like, I know I can teach WebLogic, I can teach WebSphere, I can teach Jboss, I can teach Tomcat, I can teach Cloud. So when I know I have all this capability, but someone has to help me out with the students, that part is taken care by the SVR. Similarly, Jboss application server has a capability to process the static and dynamic request. But how is that request the request has to be going to the application server. Okay, the request has to come and hit the application server. Then only it will process it. But it does not go to the request and say that, hey, this is static, let me process it. This is the EJB, let it go to the EJB container. There's something related to .NET, let the IS come into the picture. That intelligence is not there with the application server. Clear?
Okay.
Anyone? Any more questions?
Another thing is, let's say there's a request came in and hitting your application server. So right now I'd like to see how many requests in the queue application server needs to process it. Is there any parameter argument we can check in GUI or somewhere? Like right now application server has 4 requests in the queue it needs to process, whether it's a static, dynamic, or whatever. What is in the queue in the waiting? How many requests are there in the waiting? Or can we kill this? Let's say we have to recycle, it's emergency, but we have to see how many requests are in the queue. And so where we go and check how many requests right now is in the queue for Jboss.
Okay, so you want to know when the request is coming and hitting the Jboss application server, you want to know how many requests are there processed, how many requests are there in the queue, and how many requests are there processed. So that kind of a thing you can't, as per my knowledge, that kind of a flexibility you'll not have with the Jboss. But if you are having a production environment in which you have an Apache sitting in front of it, yep, you can know that.
So do we have this flexibility in IBM WebSphere?
As per my knowledge, no, not even in IBM WebSphere application server. But number of threads using I think in WebLogic we have this flexibility. I'm not able to recollect the exact parameter, but yep, in WebLogic we have this facility. If you want to get a confirmation whether it's possible in Jboss or not, just drop me an email. I can work and I can just confirm you. But as per my knowledge, no.
Okay. So can we have more than one web server? Like let's say I want to have 5 or 6 web server working with one Jboss.
No, not possible. Yeah, sorry, it's possible. Sorry, it's possible. But why? Why 5 to 6?
Shiva, like suppose I have 2 websites. Like I want to keep 2 sites, so I can keep 2 web servers at one location, one web server at another location.
Even one web server would be there. We have something called as a proxy pass. So using the proxy pass, okay, I can say from which whenever the request comes and heads, okay, from one particular DNS name, how the request has to be processed. I can keep it in the one proxy inside the Apache server, httpd.conf. We have something called as a proxy pass. Using that, I can do it.
So it means in http.conf for each web server, it has a information of all other web server as well. Like we have total
No,
4
not
web
all
server.
other web servers. Not
All
all
the
other
web server
servers.
information will be everybody's http.conf.
Whatever the configuration information is there related to my web server, that is there in the http.conf. I think Ombir was asking this question saying that if I have 2 websites, can I use only one web server? So referring to that, I said that yes, in the httpd.conf, we have something called as a proxy pass, which we can say that, hey, whenever the request comes from the DNS name, go to this one. Okay, I can create a
Shiva, I think we'll come to this session when we install cluster and plugin and we'll see everything.
Yeah,
so
I can
I
do
think
that.
we should go with domain, and then we can cover all this stuff.
Okay.
Totally, like we can create a whole setup, right? So that
Yes,
will clarify
yes.
everything. Yeah.
Yes. So other than guys, anyone, any more questions?
No,
Kranti,
Shiva, you can go ahead with this domain thing.
Okay, cool. Kranti, you also no questions? Okay. Silence, I'll take it as So guys, just give me a confirmation. In the last session, did we talk anything about the domain mode? Like what is meant by server groups? What is meant by domain controller? What is meant by slave controller? What is meant by host? What is meant by the server groups? Did we talk anything about like this?
We just start talking, and after that your electricity went off something.
Okay. So let me do one thing. Let me again freshly start. It might be a little bit repetitive for you, but try to see if you are able to understand. Okay? Yep. So we talked about the standard. Okay? We also know about the. Yes. Sorry, if you have a question.
No.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So in the last session, we talked about the standalone mode. What is the standalone mode? What are the advantages of a standalone mode? How do I deploy the application in a standalone mode? Like this, everything and anything related to the standalone mode, we are trying to discuss in a last session. In our today's session, what we'll try to do is that we'll introduce ourselves to the domain world. What is this domain world, Shiva? As we already discussed about the differences between the standalone mode and the domain mode, the primary reason why we have a domain mode is to have the horizontal scaling. Whenever I want to route the request from to multiple JVMs inside the Jboss, I generally try to use the Jboss application server. Okay, Jboss application server in the running in the domain mode. That's the basic purpose of having the domain mode. So whenever I try to set the Jboss application server, okay, in a domain mode, the biggest advantage I have is a horizontal scaling. But when you're trying to do this kind of a setup, Jboss application server domain mode asks you to understand few terminologies, like how we have a cell, how we have a profile, how we have the node, etc. In a domain mode also, certain important terminologies which you have to know. The first one in the list is the domain controller. What is this domain controller, Shiva? Very, very simple. Domain controller is nothing but the one that controls the domain. Okay, the GUI or the interface, okay, the one that controls your entire domain, we call it as a domain controller. Am I clear? The one that controls your entire domain, okay, we call it as a domain controller. Clear?
Yes.
But when I'm saying that, okay, the interface that connects, that controls your entire domain, okay, is a domain controller. That means to say that you might have a Jboss application server. Let's say that. Let's take a simple example. Let's take a simple example that, okay, this is machine A. This is machine B and machine C. Clear? Machine A, B, and C. Let me name it.
Kranti, there is some noise from your side.
Yeah,
From my
yeah.
side, Bombay?
From Kranti.
Oh, okay. So this machine A, machine B, and machine C. These are the three machines I have got, and all of this in all of these three machines, let's say that the Jboss is installed. Okay, Jboss in a domain mode. Okay, I got the Jboss application server in a domain mode set up for all of them. Okay, everyone able to see this? So I have installed Jboss application server on machine A, machine B, and machine C. So all this Jboss application server running on machine A, machine B, and machine C is in the domain mode. So when it's there in the domain mode, I said that we'll have only one controller called as a domain controller that controls your entire domain. So you can, which one should be a domain controller, you can decide. Jboss application server doesn't put any restriction saying that these are the prerequisite for anyone and everyone to be called as a domain controller. Nothing like that. Jboss puts a restriction. The complete flexibility is given to the administrator, your Jboss admin. So you can make a call which one should be a domain controller. I assumed that, okay, the machine A will be a domain controller. I assumed that machine A would be a domain controller. Okay, there's no rule, there's no, as I said, there's nothing called as this. These are the eligible qualities to be called as a domain controller. Nothing is being recommended by the Jboss. Whatever the machine on which your Jboss application server running in the domain mode, any machine where you have the Jboss application server that can be started in the domain mode successfully, you can make that one as a domain controller. For my own reason, I decided that the Jboss application server running in the domain mode on machine A would be a domain controller. Clear? Am I clear to everyone?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sure.
Okay. So when I'm saying that my machine A is the domain controller, it can comfortably administer, it can comfortably control, it can comfortably monitor the different resources that are integrated, that are connected to the domain controller. Okay, domain controller, the machine on which your domain controller is running, we also call it as an master. The machine on which your domain controller is running, okay, or the Jboss application server instance, okay, which is running as a master, which is running as a domain controller, we also call it as a master. Clear, everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Jboss application server, where you have your, one second. So the machine on which your domain controller is running, we call that one as a master. So all the other Jboss applications server domain mode which are getting connected to this master, we call them as a slave. Clear? So when I have a master, obviously I'll have a slave. Clear, everyone?
Yes, Shiva.
Okay. So the machine on which where I have my Jboss application server running in the domain mode called as a domain controller, that one I call it as a master. What is a master? The master is nothing but the Jboss application server running in a domain mode where my domain controller is running. The JVM instance, okay, the machine having the JVM instance running as a domain controller, I call it as a master. The remaining all of them, okay, the remaining all the other Jboss instances running in the domain mode to connected to this domain controller, I call them as a slave. Clear? Whatever the Jboss application server instances running on the other machine which are connected to this master, I call it as a slave. Clear, everyone?
Yes, Shiva.
Why we can't call them also as a master? As I said previously, any machine where you have your Jboss application server instance running in a domain mode, any machine can make it as a master. I made one machine as a machine A as a master. Why can't I call the Jboss application server instance running in the domain mode on machine B or machine C as a master? Can't I have three masters?
Generally, in any analogy of this domain, we have only one master because you are supposed to do changes from a single place.
Okay.
There should be some master repository at least. The same changes should be reflected throughout the environment.
Okay. Anyone else? Kranti, Asif, Ombir. Sorry, Kranti, Asif, and Digesh.
Domain control is a central management system.
Okay.
So think we can configure only one.
Okay.
Now, actually, see, you can have one same master domain controller within the environment, but that other can act as a backup one. But it just synchronized between both. Like if it is two masters, then they are synchronized between each other. You
Okay.
can have more, like these are all the whole. Like in the Windows domain controller is like more than one. Like more domain controllers are there. Like
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we can have additional domain controllers.
Controllers in
A couple
that.
of minutes back, you people told that we can't have it. Now you're saying we can have it. Can we or can't?
No. So what I'm saying, like this slave domain controller is also a domain controller, but in environment we need some master repository. We should have like where from we synchronize. Everyone will synchronize.
Okay. Ombi sir, and think Kranti is from India. I think she's still in India. I understand that. I'm not sure about Asif. Digesh and Ombi, you are from India, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So when before we had the BJP government, we had the Congress government under the great silent leader called as Manmohan Singh. So he was a PM candidate. But apart from this, okay, we also had another PM candidate like Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi. If possible, Robert Vadodara. Okay. But out of all of these three candidates, some reasons only Manmohan Singh was made as a PM. Correct? But technically speaking, these three candidates are the eligible candidates, or these three candidates are the one who got an equal opportunity to become a PM of India.
Yeah.
But only one person been made as a PM. Similarly, the Jboss application server running on all these three machines has an equal opportunity to be made as a domain controller. I had my own reasons why I made as a machine A, I made as a domain controller or a master. It's not a golden rule that only one machine, only one master should be there. I can have multiple machines running as a master. But the problem here is that, okay, in my native language Telugu, okay, there's a saying, wherein which if all people sit in the in this chariot, okay, there's no person to be driven. Okay, when I have all the machine running as a master, tell me what is the machine where I can have a slave. Okay, so although there is a possibility for each and every machine or all the machines to behave like a master, but there should be something called as a slave. Otherwise, the concept of the Jboss domain mode doesn't fit in well into your system. So you have to make one machine mandatory as a master and the other machines as a slave. But from the Jboss application server point of view, it doesn't put any restriction saying that you can have only one master. You can have all the machines as a master. But who would be the slave to that? You have to make a call. Do you want to run the Jboss application server without having a slave? Then the concept of horizontal scaling will be lost. Clear? Because one machine running as a master cannot be controlled or will not be able to control the other Jboss application server instances running in the domain mode, where it's acting like a master. Clear? If machine A is acting like a master, okay, assuming that machine B also is being made as a master, it cannot control the machine A Jboss master. Similarly, machine A Jboss master cannot control the machine B Jboss master. Clear? Then the purpose of horizontal scaling will be lost. Am I clear?
Yes.
Anyone? Any questions?
So Shiva, when we make these masters, so do we give them a domain name as well?
If you want, you can give it.
No, is it compulsory or is it like it's not required?
It's not required. It's all your comfort. I'll tell you how do we configure a particular, when you configure a particular machine as a master or as a slave, what are the changes you need to make? I'll discuss about that. Okay, but anyone, any questions still here? What is meant by master? What is meant by slave? What is meant by domain controller?
Ah,
Yeah, Digesh.
no, I'm good.
Digesh. Okay, cool.
So there is no agent between master and slave.
Sorry?
There is no agent between master and slave.
Like how we have a node agent in the WebSphere, such kind of a
Right.
concept is not there in the Jboss. The
Okay.
communication happens directly without any broker. Okay? Yeah. Anyone? Any more questions? Okay. Silence, I'll take it as a no. So, I know what is meant by domain controller. Okay, I know what is meant by master. I know about what is meant by slave. Similarly, there is also another concept called as host controller and process controller. Here, there's some other things called as host controller and process controller. So, if you see this host controller, okay, host controller is nothing but it is the responsibility of the host controller is to control the different resources that are there on that particular host. Whatever the number of servers you have defined on that particular host, the responsibility of the host controller is to control or administer those resources on that particular host. Clear? So that means to say that in each and every machine, minimum to minimum, where my Jboss application server is running, assuming that machine A, machine B, machine C have one installation of the Jboss application server, in each and every one of my machine A, B, and C, I'll have a process called as an host controller running. Am I clear?
So Shiva, can't we say this host controller as a node agent?
No. Node agent, to some extent you can say node agent, but again that might be confusing. So let's say it's a host controller only. Okay. Whatever the resources that are there, okay, it's something like, let's say that I got a team set up in US, Canada, and India. So my project manager is there, let's say in Canada. Can he come directly, okay, and see what is the person sitting in India or US trying to do at this point of the time? Every day he can't travel and administer the resources. So what he'll do, for the team sitting in India, he'll appoint one fellow as a team lead. For the people sitting in India, in US, okay, for team sitting in US, he'll make one particular fellow as a team lead. The responsibility of the TS is to give the status update about the team, concerns, good, bad, negatives, everything related to the team to the project manager. In a similar way, for the team sitting in Canada also, he will identify one fellow as a TL. So those TLs, what is the responsibility of them? The responsibility of the TLs is to update the status information about the team members, having them in their location. Clear?
Yeah.
So your team leads are like your host controllers. Host controller responsibility is to give the status update about the different resources that are running on their host. Clear?
Yeah, sure.
Anyone? Any questions?
Host means it's a domain?
Yep. Domain means, are you trying to talk about the network domain name, or are you trying to talk about the Jboss domain?
Jboss domain.
Yes, Jboss domain. I have some instances running in a domain mode in machine A, machine B, and machine C. Okay. If I want to control or administer the different servers that are running in the Jboss application server domain mode on machine B, okay, that is done by using the machine B host controller.
Okay.
Kranti, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
See, whatever the servers that are running on each and every host defined by configuration file called as an host.xml file, the